Hello, and welcome back to Tolkien with Friends. Anna, can you believe that this is our 10th episode?
No.
Right?
It feels
on
like
one
we
hand,
started yesterday.
I know, it really does. I still feel like a little baby podcaster. But
10 feels like a lot.
yeah, it's a solid amount of episodes, right?
It sure is.
And it feels fitting because today we are ending Fellowship of the Ring book and movie, and technically starting the Two Towers book. So 10 feels like a good number for that. But before we get into that, there is something we have to discuss first, and that is the new House of the Dragon teaser trailer. So, since they're not giving us any more clues about Rings of Power, I'm glad
they're like, we gave you your posters. Bye.
We gave you literally 1 second of just like shots of mystery. And so I'm glad that at least one fantasy series is getting a little bit of something.
Yeah.
So Anna, can you walk us through what we see in the trailer?
It's very much a teaser. It's very much just a little boop boop, very, very little bit of snippets of what you're going to be getting. But I ultimately think this is more of like an introduction of some of the characters that we're going to be seeing. They really give you no clues about the plot. It's just like assumption and based on like what we know so far from the books. But the main people that they focus on and who are you going to want to watch out for in the TV show is King Viserys. They have a big scene of everyone like declaring their loyalty to him and his first daughter Rhaena, and these are the main two characters I feel like, especially for this first season. So the content of the show are going to be discussing the civil war between some of the Targaryens at this time and basically who controls power. King Viserys wants his daughter Rhaena to be his successor. There are some family members who disagree with that, and some violence ensues. And we kind of have see some snippets of those tension and potentially some of those fights in that teaser. But other people who are pretty significant to this is Matt Smith's character, King Viserys' brother. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but him as well as Alicent Hightower. She's like a younger, pretty lady with brown hair. And then her father, Otto Hightower. So between King Viserys, Princess Rhaena, so we have the king, he's obviously very Targaryen-y. Rhaena, they call her out by name. They call both of them out by name in the trailers. Those two, Matt Smith's character, who is another Targaryen, and then Alicent Hightower and Otto Hightower. We see big close-up shots of them, and those last three are the ones who are not so happy about the succession of Rhaena. So I think it was a good, like, hey, here are the characters, and maybe later we'll get more of a trailer that is going to delve more into these
like the plot
and the plot and the reasoning why this very powerful family is fighting between them. But right now it was just some good old introduction shots, and I think this trailer which is teasing just some of the characters is fitting because they released a lot of promo posters as well for each of the main characters on like their Instagram and Twitter. So I think it's just like hey, here are these people, get excited.
That is so funny. It's so similar to how Rings of Power released their teaser and their character posters.
I definitely thought about it when I was like, oh, they were like, that was successful, let's do it too.
Yeah, well, it's like, and on the Game of Thrones end, they released more, I mean, you get to see their faces and stuff. Yeah. Like, it's like a real character poster, whereas the Rings of Power one was super mysterious and you just saw people's hands.
So mysterious.
Yeah. But then they went on to like start to reveal who some of those characters were, but not all. We're all still like trying to figure out which one's supposed to be Sauron. Are there going to be wizards? That kind of thing. So very interesting.
Yes. Yes.
What are you most looking forward to seeing in the show?
I'm at this point most excited of seeing like the world building, like
Mm-hmm.
300 years prior to what we're talking about. At this time, I really don't have any sort of attachments to any of the characters. But like, what was King's Landing like 300
And
to
this is all
500
taking
years
place
ago?
in
Well, and it's still in
Westeros?
Westeros. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool.
Surely we'll see more Valyria, which is in Essos, because we like saw almost. I mean, that wasn't the main point of Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
So surely we'll see some of that now, but it'll still take place in Westeros. So I'm excited to see what some of those places are. Dragonstone, there should be more Dragonstone, not just like the sad abandoned place it was in Game of Thrones, but an actual thriving city that people are holding.
I love that.
So that'll be really cool.
That's so funny. That reminds me of Lord of the Rings a lot. As far as like by the time we're in Lord of the Rings, a lot of these places are not, like Moria, Holland, places that are even, Lothlorien or whatever. They're either abandoned or they're like not in their heyday anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even the realms of men aren't. But in Rings of Power, we should be seeing all of these realms and races really living it up. Like, even though it's not the first age, it's still like there still should be a lot of like glamour, I'm gonna say, for like the Numenorians and the dwarves and stuff. So that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
I'm like, how wild is it that these two shows are like, they have like, I'm not gonna say similar vibes, I'm gonna say similar like prequel stuff going on.
Yeah.
And then coming out around the same time. I don't know.
They sure are.
Yeah. Just good shit.
I'm excited.
Yeah. It'll be fun. And it's funny, like, I'll still see some of my mutuals on TikTok, like, some people that, I mean, not mutuals, but, like, most of the Game of Thrones creators that I follow, like, they are excited for it. But then some of my friends that are more on the Lord of the Rings side, they're like, ugh, like, what they did with Game of Thrones, like, I do not care anymore. And I'm just like, I mean, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. It's, I just, like, can't stop loving it. You know, I fully recognize that the last season was not what it should be, but that I
think it's okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I understand you can feel burned, but, like, I don't know. Like, George was involved in this one. They do, and, like, we know that they had problems when they ran out of source material. I won't say deviated, because I'm sure they deviated either way. But this one, they've got what they need. You know what I mean? So, like, that makes me think that they don't really have a reason to.
Right. And I think a lot of maybe some of the bad choices that were made in the last season of Game of Thrones was just due to D&D's like exhaustion and artistic burnout, and they're not doing this one. So you have people who are fresh and excited about the concept, which I think will help in creating better content than to people who are just artistically strung out from working on a show for so long.
It's a lot of time
too. So
exactly. I think it's going to be fun either way. We're getting more dragons back, so I really hope that they get to their moment to shine. Like, I know in the trailer that we only really see like one being like but I hope they're just kind of like chilling, just hanging out. There should be
more. So.
Just like you walk into a room like, oh, excuse me, sir.
Well,
just flying around doing their thing.
That'll be cute.
Yeah, that would be so cute. And like, think of the merch, Anna. Think of the merch.
I already have so much Game of Thrones merch. And I'm going to be buying so much more.
I just hope that, like, slowly we start to see behind you, it just, like, more dragons. Just, like, a stacked up
IKEA bookshelf, it's going to spill over, and this blank wall is going to turn into something else because I got a lot.
You're just gonna be like, "Hi, welcome to the
Oh, I'll just be like, and I'll be over here. Hi.
Yeah, like, hi. Yeah, I'm excited for when they start releasing, because like places like Box Lunch and stuff, they're gonna start releasing stuff.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm always excited when they because sometimes when they release new Lord of the Rings stuff, because obviously Lord of the Rings is old now, and they don't really have necessarily a reason to make new stuff. But sometimes they do, and I'm like, eh. But then sometimes they do, and I'm like, I love that.
Did they have anything for either of these two shows at New York Comic Con last year?
No.
No? So you're going to have to keep your eye out for it this year.
Yeah.
Because I know they had some Mandalorian stuff before the show came out. Like when we went to New York Comic Con, I bought some Mandalorian stuff just because like I knew I was going to.
Yeah.
Because Pedro Pascal's in it.
Yeah.
But then it ended up being really, really good,
Yeah.
But you were like, cool, I bought that merch before.
And great, I don't have to resell this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to keep my eye out. The tickets go on sale like tomorrow. So I'm going to try to get Friday, Saturday tickets this year.
Nice.
Because you need a day. Like if you, like I still don't know who is going to show up. I'm hoping for Hobbits because I know the Hobbits are going to be in Boston. I know they're going to be in Canada around the same time. So you would think that they would just come to. But the thing about New York Comic Con is they don't release who's coming
until later.
Yeah. And I'm like, you expect me to buy my tickets first? So I guess I will. So I kind of want to do one day if we need to stand in line for stuff and one day where we can just wander around and go to things.
Yeah. That was something we should have taken advantage of last time, but we had no idea. So.
I know. Yeah. Literally no idea. But we'll know for next time.
Yeah.
I almost wish I had done that last year because on the day that we got there, I found out that 2 people from Battlestar Galactica were going to be there.
Oh.
And I was like, seriously? Like, not the year that I wore my Battlestar stuff, but like the year I'm wearing a Hobbit sweater.
You should have taken that personally.
I did.
It feels like an attack towards you.
Yeah, it
Your
does.
outfit was so cute and so on point that I feel like they should have been able to see it.
I know! So I'm kind of hoping that maybe Edward James Olmos will come back or something. I would die if Katie Sackhoff showed up.
Maybe you shouldn't then go. Because I do feel like you would die.
I would die.
And explode inside.
I love you. But yeah, I know she doesn't do, because depending on what else she's doing, she doesn't go to all the cons. She goes to some, probably the ones closer to her. But we'll see. So I guess that brings us to what the Fellowship's been up to then. Right? Let's check in on them. Okay, so the last time we saw the company, they had just left Lothlorien, and they were making their way down the Anduin, which is the Great River. You know it. Now, the end of the movie lines up perfectly with the last 2 chapters of the Fellowship, which is the Great River and the Breaking of the Fellowship, and the first chapter of Two Towers, the Departure of Boromir. So that's what we'll be covering today. In these chapters, we see the Fellowship traveling down the river. They pass the Argonath, our guys.
Yes.
Big tall statues. And they stop on the western bank of the river just above the falls of Rauros. In the books, this is where Aragorn is grappling with this decision about what to do next. We've seen in Lothlorien about how he was trying to figure it out. He's been putting it off because he's kind of taken over the role of Gandalf since Gandalf fell in Moria. So should he lead the company to Mordor? Should he go to Minas Tirith with Boromir? Which is totally what his intention was. He was very clearly at the Council of Elrond saying that like our paths, when Frodo was excited that Aragorn was coming, he's like, yes, I am going to Minas Tirith, but our paths may go together for many leagues kind of thing. So, his heart is telling him one thing, but he's like, I was entrusted with this survival of this group. Like, what do I do? But in the movies, almost as soon as they park their boats, he's like, okay, like we got to get ready. We're going to go across the river. We're going to, we're all going to Mordor basically. And it's clear that that's Aragorn's plan in the movie until Saruman's Uruk-hai show up. So, so the bones of it are pretty much the same as the books, Like, if you just watch the movies, you pretty much got everything. But while I won't go so far as to say that this part of the movie is better than the book, I think this is the first time for me where, for like a pretty good chunk of it, not only does it feel accurate, but I feel like Peter Jackson's version is more emotionally satisfying than the book.
Okay.
So I have 3 kind of moments that I think illustrate what I mean. So first we have the breaking of the fellowship. Not the chapter, but the way in which the fellowship breaks. So, as a brief reminder, the general structure of all this is the same. Boromir confronts Frodo and makes him realize that he should go to Mordor, and he feels like he should go alone. Boromir goes on to fight the orcs to protect Merry and Pippin, while Frodo runs back to the boats to try to leave without anybody noticing. Sam catches up with Frodo. Aragorn arrives too late to save Boromir, Merry, or Pippin. But in the books, Frodo wanders away from the group because Aragorn believes that the choice to go to Minas Tirith or Mordor ultimately lies with Frodo. Frodo is struggling to decide. Like, Sam goes on to explain that he knows that Frodo knows what he must do, that he knows he should go to Mordor, but obviously, like, going to Minas Tirith is tempting, right? Like, it's a solid place, another place where you could rest. We've done that in Rivendell and Lothlorien. And he knows that, I think he knows that Aragorn and Boromir, like, most people want to go to Minas Tirith. So he's like, how do I tell them, like, that we can't, And he's terrified. I mean,
Yes.
like, you're told, like, yeah, you have to go to Sauron's house.
Just drop off a little present for him that he does not want returned into the lava.
Yeah, exactly. You have to destroy it in his backyard, okay? So he's so scared, which means that Frodo only sees Boromir before deciding to go to Mordor alone. And he doesn't get to say goodbye to anybody, He runs into Boromir. They have their confrontation. He realizes that, it kind of cements his decision. He's like, yeah, I got to go to Mordor. I can't, like, if I bring this in a place where there are more people, there's only going to be more people that are going to try to take it, more people to be corrupted by the ring, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't seem as safe anymore as it may have a few moments ago. So Frodo doesn't say goodbye to anybody, and he goes to the boats immediately. So, but in the movies, he runs into Aragorn, Merry, and Pippin before he moves to the boats. And I think there's something so much more satisfying about this, and to see Aragorn and particularly Merry, their support for his decision says a lot about their characters, I think. So in the movies, Aragorn, at first he's like, where is the ring? And Frodo's like, oh my God. Like,
it's happening again.
Yeah. Then he's like, I swore to protect you. And he's like, can you protect me from yourself? Or would you destroy it? It's like another Galadriel moment where he's like, somebody else, make this their problem. And Aragorn, is looking at Frodo so sad, and he closes his hand and he says, I would have gone with you to the end, to the very fires of Mordor. And this doesn't happen in the books at all. Okay. But, like, it's such a beautiful moment that he gets with Aragorn, I think, And who doesn't want more Vigo in everything?
Everyone wants more Vigo.
You know what I mean? So I think that that's a really nice moment between them. So Frodo's running to leave because that's how they introduce the orcs, is that Aragorn sees Frodo's sword glowing, and so he's like, run. So he runs. There's orcs everywhere suddenly. But Frodo never runs into any orcs, thankfully, in the books, which makes sense because he would have, I don't know, like him just hiding behind that tree like that, he would have got caught. Sure. He would have got caught. That it would have been the end of this journey if Frodo had been taken by those orcs at that moment. So, but in the movies, he's hiding behind a tree, and Merry and Pippin see him, and are like, Frodo, come hide with us. And he goes, mm-mm, no
That's
can
really
do.
sad.
And Pippin goes, no, and like jumps out. And then Merry realizes that we have to let Frodo go. And they distract the Uruk-hai from capturing Frodo because they are out looking for, they don't know they're looking for halflings, but they are looking for halflings, so they run after Merry and Pippin.
From halflings, yeah.
And so Frodo's able to get away. And we talked about this before, where I don't feel like Merry and Pippin get as much autonomy in the movies as they do in the books. They are making decisions all the time, and like they're constantly trying to show Frodo how much they want to go with him, even though they're also scared. And even in the books, when they let Frodo walk away to like have his moment to decide what to do, they're all kind of like, well, Legolas and Gimli in particular, like, I want to go to Minas Tirith, but if Frodo wants to go to Mordor, we'll go too. And then Merry and Pippin are obviously like, yeah, we want to go where Frodo goes. And that's where you see Aragorn be like, well, I actually don't think it would be a good idea for all of the Fellowship to go. That's a lot of people to try to hide. Yeah. So he knows that Sam is going to go hell or high water. So he's like, Sam is fine. But then he thinks that like Gimli and Legolas, if he wants, can go with. But that, like, again, Merry and Pippin are trying to be, he's trying to leave Merry and Pippin out of it. And he's like, they're like, no. What? Because they know Boromir is going to go to Minas Tirith, whatever they do. So that's kind of a difference there. Anna, do you have any initial reactions to the way that the Fellowship breaks in the movie?
I obviously don't have anything to compare it to for the books, but I did feel like the way they portrayed it in the movie to really tug at your heartstrings. You really, as an audience member, feel that he is making a really hard choice, but he is choosing to go alone. And then I think like first seeing Boromir, and then seeing Viggo, and then seeing Merry and Pippin makes the Sam interaction the most dramatic. And I think so you're like building, and you're like, no. And
yeah I agree. I think that it's like having those goodbyes helps that moment a lot because it's sad. It's like, oh, I would have gone with you to the end. Like Pippin being like, no, and then Merry being like, Frodo,
yeah.
And then you get to Sam, and I will say that this moment is like, it's pretty similar. Like, I think the main difference is that Frodo is actually wearing the ring when he's in the boat. So Sam sees a boat being pushed into the water and like rowing away by itself, and he's like, God dang it, Frodo, you bitch. Yeah. And so he runs after him, and he does kind of sink, and Frodo grabs him by his hair, not his hand, which obviously I understand why they did it with the hand in the movie, because that looks a lot better. It's a little more awkward in the books, but I think Frodo even when he gets Sam into the boat to try to save him, he still resists a little bit, and he calls him, of all the confounded nuisances, you are the worst, Sam. And Sam was like, oh, Mr. Frodo, that's hard. Like, why would you say that? And he's like, Sam, don't hinder me if I wait any longer. And because they don't know that about the orcs or anything of the nonsense happening behind them. So he's like, like they're going to show up soon, and I won't be able to tell them that I'm leaving, and I don't want them to come with me, and he's like, I'm going to go to Mordor. And Sam, like in the book, says, of course you are, and I'm coming with you. But I think what adds to this moment is when Frodo is trying to, before he gets on the boat, he remembers Gandalf's words, like one of the most iconic lines ever, so do all who live to see such times, but that is not for them to decide. All you have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to you. And it's funny because we're going to see here in a few chapters in Two Towers, Frodo has in the books has a similar moment where he remembers Gandalf's words and they're repeated for you, but they chose to use it here, which I think is really nice as far as, this was like Gandalf's movie, right? Like Gandalf the Grey anyway.
Yeah.
Like he was such a big part of this beginning of this story, and so I think it is a nice callback to have that here, having Frodo remember those words. And of course, like those words were said in Moria in the movies, so it's like the moment right before Gandalf falls, so it feels more poignant, right? And so he decides to get on the boat, and then when Sam is saying, and I'm coming with you, about Frodo going alone, the movie adds, I made a promise, Mr. Frodo, a promise. Don't you leave him, Samwise Gamgee. And I don't mean to. I'm like, oh my God. Could you? I mean, like the addition, I mean, it's not a ton of change. I mean, they cut out some of Frodo kind of being rude and they add this, and it's like, oh, like... Yeah. If Frodo had told him to go away after that, you'd be like, what is wrong with you? So I really love that they did that in the movies. And then there's also, I think, again, another knife to the heart with Boromir's death. And what's funny is that I always felt that, like, because I always felt it was the movies that gave Boromir a bad impression, but reading them and then watching this stuff back to back, I feel like Tolkien in the books is more so laying seeds about Boromir, like, struggling with the ring a lot sooner, and like he isn't interacting a lot with Frodo. There are a few moments of kindness, but not a lot, and you see Frodo starting to notice a change in Boromir in the books, and he like points those things out. And so by the time that Boromir kind of corners Frodo, it doesn't feel like much of a surprise. And I wouldn't say it feels like a surprise in the books either, but I think it's like, maybe it's just Sean Bean's performance, but it feels a lot sadder, like... In the books, it kind of goes on for a bit longer. There's Boromir actually has like a Galadriel moment, where how when Frodo offers her the ring and she has this like big speech, like instead of a Dark Lord you would have a queen stuff, and then she says, I passed the test. Well, because she snaps out of it, right? But Boromir doesn't really pass his test. Because he doesn't come out of it by himself. Like, Frodo has to run away before he realizes. Yeah. But he has this speech in the book where he says, he's trying to convince Frodo that it could be used as a weapon. And he says, what could not a warrior do in this hour, a great leader? What could not Aragorn do? Or if he refuses, why not Boromir? The ring would give me power of command. Like, he immediately moves from, like, Aragorn he would be great at it. Or, like, I would be, like, really great. And he goes into, like, how I would drive the hosts of Mordor and all men would flock to my banner. And he drew great plans for great alliances and glorious victories to be, and he cast down Mordor, and he became himself a mighty king, benevolent and wise. Like, he paraphrases the rest of his speech because Tolkien is like, man, this guy went off.
He was doing the most.
So he like is, and it notes that it almost seems like he forgets Frodo is there, and he's clearly like imagining himself as like what you exactly what would happen if he got the ring. And we also know that anybody with good intentions would, while their intentions may be good, the fact that you would put yourself in like this ruling position over people, like it happens every time. Like later we'll see when Sam helps Frodo with the ring after he's, immobilized by Shelob, that when he has the ring, he imagines turning the world into a garden and forcing people to help him take care of this garden. And the thing that makes him snap out of it is like, no, like the joy of a garden is you doing it with your own hands. Like you don't enjoy, like, I'm not going to
Yeah.
enjoy bossing people around to do it. So it's interesting, like the differences in how like you see these various characters tempted by the ring.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously that doesn't happen in the movies, and what does happen, you know, it's a quicker exchange, but much of the same happens. You know, he says that he wants to use it to defend his people. Frodo is like, nah, not how this works, because
Mm-hmm.
Frodo is smart and he gets it, and he just escaped by putting on the ring. But and then, you know, we get to see, and then that cut to Boromir defending Merry and Pippin, which I think is probably the best part of Boromir for me. Like, in the movies, we get to see Boromir defending them. You see this whole, like, you see how he ends up with the 3 arrows in his body, and, like, you see why he isn't able to protect Merry and Pippin, unfortunately. And then Aragorn helps, you know, save him from the last like horribleness in the movies, and they have their little their conversation before he dies. But in the books, all of that happens off screen, and because Two Towers starts with Frodo has already left to go to the boats, and Aragorn still doesn't know that, and Sam has realized it and gone back, but Aragorn is still like searching. You know, he's tracking him. He's like looking for his footprints and stuff, and he knows that he went up to the seat of Amon Hen, and he's like, I wonder why he came here. And he's looking around, and that's when he hears the horn of Gondor that Boromir's blowing, and he runs off to help. But he gets there too late. Like, he's already leaned up against a tree, and he's got the, you know, it looks like he's just hanging out, but really he's got these 3 arrows in him and he's dying. Yeah. And so, and the exchange is so much quicker. Like, so he's there, Boromir admits that he tried to take the ring from Frodo, and that Merry and Pippin have been taken, and they were like, he saw them, that they were bound, and he thinks they're still alive. That's how Aragorn knows that. And then he says, you know, farewell, Aragorn. Go to Minas Tirith and save my people. I have failed. No, you have conquered. Few have gained such a victory. Be at peace. Minas Tirith shall not fall. Boromir smiles, and then he doesn't speak again, because he doesn't get to ask what happened to Frodo. But obviously in the movies, Aragorn knows what happens to Frodo. So it's just a smaller exchange, juxtaposed with the movie where he's like, forgive me, like, I have failed you all. And again, Aragorn reassures him that you fought bravely. And Boromir goes into a little bit more. He says, the world of men will fall, not just Minas Tirith, and all will come to darkness and my city to ruin. Aragorn responds, I do not know what strength is in my blood, but I swear to you, I will not let the White City fall, nor our people fail. And just the Sean Bean with his our people, you know? And I would have followed you, my brother, my captain, my king. Then those being his last words, it's just like another twist.
One last stab.
Yeah, it's so emotional. Like, if you don't cry at one of those points, like, you're a sociopath. Anyway, but do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like the strength of the ending of the movies, of the Fellowship movie, is that it really lays out like how sad it is for the Fellowship to break.
Yes, I agree.
But then it gives you that hope with, like, you know, Frodo and Sam being like, you know, I hope Strider finds a safer road, or I hope they find a safer road, and you know, I bet we will never see them again. But same way, last line of Sam is that we may yet, you know, Mr. Frodo, and that's the same. And then Aragorn having Gimli and Legolas hunt, help him find Merry and Pippin also is the same.
Yes.
So like we get these moments, it's like this really hard, like sad moments, and then little bits of hope right at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing with Boromir, I think, is even that I really also love about it is that to me, it feels like a callback to a moment in the books between Aragorn and Boromir at the Council of Elrond. So we've discussed this a lot. Like Aragorn in the movies, he's a lot more hesitant to claim his role. He's like, I don't want it. But in the books, he does want it. He is clearly, there's several moments where you see him being very kingly, and he's more waiting for the right time to do it. And he clearly wants to show that he's earned it and that he wants the approval of the people of Gondor. And in fact, at the council, he says to Boromir, now you have seen the sword that you sought, that from the dream that he had about the sword that was broken. What would you ask? Do you wish for the house of Elendil to return to the land of Gondor? He's like literally asking Boromir permission. And well, yes, in the books, Boromir tells Aragorn to go to Minas Tirith and save his people. I think that although that moment doesn't happen in the movies about like asking permission, I think that it's a very satisfying answer for people that have read the books, as far as like acknowledging him as his king and calling the men of Gondor our people. I think that's beautiful.
Yes, I agree.
It's like, and I feel like that's the moment in the movies where you start to see Aragorn. He hasn't admitted it yet, but he is starting to really claim that, and you see like his path shifting from Frodo's protector to I'm gonna take the kingship.
Damn.
So I'm trying to think like that. I mean, that's pretty much what happens, right? And then we've got,
I would say so.
Like, like obviously in the books he doesn't say let's hunt some orc, but he does say like that we travel light and stuff. But I do love that in the movie you start to see. I feel like that is also like a shift, like saying our people, and then there he's like really taking leadership of Gimli and Legolas, because at that moment they're like, oh, like what did we do this for? Yeah, because Legolas is surprised that Aragorn means not to follow Frodo and Sam in the movies, at least, and they decide to help Merry and Pippin, which I think is great. Like I understand wanting to help Frodo and Sam, but we all kind of know that it's going to be the more people you add to that Mordor journey,
the harder.
Yeah, like those elf cloaks do a lot as far as hiding you from unfriendly eyes, but I also don't believe at all that Gollum would have tried to mess with Frodo and Sam as much. Like in the book here, in this moment, in the extended edition, you see a second of it, but not really. But Frodo and Sam, again, they talk about noticing Gollum following them on the river. Sam, similar to how Frodo sees Gollum in the Mines of Moria, he's like kind of fallen asleep in the boat, and he sees what he thinks is a log with eyes, and he and he's like, oh, he shakes himself out of it, and then is like, maybe I didn't see anything. But then he tells himself to Frodo, he's like, the more I think about it, the more I think that something was up with that. And Frodo's like, oh yeah, that's Gollum.
Did I tell you? That he was calling us?
So, and I think Aragorn also chimes in and is like, I thought we would lose him on the river, but he's too clever a waterman. But it's like Boromir and him talking about it in the extended edition of the movie. So, there's no way that Gollum was going to mess with Aragorn. Like, you can tell. Like if Aragorn had gone with Frodo and Sam, at least, I think there's no way. And that's literally how they get into Mordor. Like, I don't think anybody else considered the stairs of Cirith Ungol, you know, like, I really, and there's no way you're getting through the Black Gate either.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, so, who knows? It would have been a disaster.
Surely.
Yeah, and it would have been a disaster if they tried to go to Minas Tirith. If Frodo had waited, he totally would have gotten captured by the Uruk-hai at that moment. And we know how evil things like to find Frodo because he's carrying the ring.
Right.
So, like, probably would have driven those orcs crazy having that in their vicinity.
Chaos.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where we kind of leave our fellowship at this point. Frodo and Sam are going to have to make their way through, as Gimli in the movie, he describes what the road ahead to Mordor is like, which is totally for the benefit of the audience, because I don't think Gimli would have really known that. So Gimli mentions the Emin Muil, which is the labyrinth of razor-sharp rocks, right, that they have to wind their way through. And then he says, like, these festering, stinking marshlands. But the marshlands, Gollum points out later, I'm like, spoilers, but whatever. It points out that, like, orcs go around the marshes. Nobody travels through the marshes because it's such unstable ground, but Gollum and Frodo and Sam are tiny. Yeah. So they can find ground, like, unstable enough land to hold them up, and so they're able to cut off a lot of time and go through that way. And it's a path that Gollum knows, specifically Gollum knows. So that also would have
not happened.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that Gimli says that because, you know, Peter knows that that's the way that they're gonna go. So it's kind of like a little, hey, this is what's up next. So you see Frodo and Sam go to the east, and everyone else goes west, except for Boromir. Hashtag sad.
R.I.P.
Yeah, sorry, Boromir. And that is where they leave him. I think it's so funny that, and this is also where in the books you start to see, at the very end of Fellowship, it switches perspective to Sam, and you see him realizing when he's following Aragorn that, like, Frodo's trying to leave, and that's where it switches to just Frodo and Sam. And then at the beginning of Two Towers, it's from the perspective of Aragorn. And so we're going to see the split in the books of who the perspective changing, because in the books it's going to get hairy because I'm trying to follow the way the movie did it, right? But the way that Tolkien does it is the first half of Two Towers is, you know, Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas, and then Merry and Pippin. And then it switches back to what Frodo and Sam have been up to that whole time.
Okay.
And then in The Return of the King, it's like starts with Pippin and Gandalf, and then switches to, you know, Aragorn, and, you know, switches back and forth between the first half being Pippin, Merry, Aragorn stuff, and then Frodo and Sam again before they all come back together. So I'm trying to line it up with the chapters. If I don't do it perfect, we'll find out next week. So I'm trying to do my best to not split these chapters up. But we'll see how it works out, because there's definitely, especially as we get to Return of the King, more intersplicing of things happening.
Sure.
But I'm trying to keep it so that if you're just, like, watching the movies, that you can keep abreast of what's going on. Yeah. So that's it. That for Fellowship of the Ring.
Dun, dun, dun.
Only took us 10 episodes to do. So we'll see how long Two Towers and Return of the King takes us. So that's that. You know, thanks everyone for listening and following along. I think by the time, like, right now I'm dealing with some kind of, like, admin stuff on the end for the podcast. Like, I'm trying to switch podcast hosts. So hopefully by the time I release this one, we'll be back to our normal posting schedule. And for, you know, updates about anything that we're doing in between, you can always follow us on Twitter and Instagram. So we'll see you on the interwebs.